Hi, this is Herb Shabrow for the Dr. Vax channel, and I am very excited to be here today with my grandson Zach, and we're going to assemble an Ender 3 Pro 3D printer together. And the goal of this video is to demonstrate to everyone that a new 8th grade graduate can assemble an Ender 3 Pro. It's really easy. It's something you can handle. In the past, I've normally recommended to people brand new to 3D printing the Monoprice Mini Select or Select Mini. And I still like that printer, but you don't get a lot of bang for your buck. It's a very small printer. The fact that it's small makes it really easy to put on a desk or even a kitchen counter, but this is a little bigger print area for the same amount of money. This printer, the Ender 3, is $199. The Ender 3 Pro is $239. We'll talk about that in a minute. So stay tuned and let's learn something together. Okay, let's start by talking about the difference between the Ender 3 and the Ender 3 Pro. The actual print dimensions are identical. The Ender 3, when it was originally released, was about $230, $240. And it is now $199, most of the places you can buy it. The Ender 3 Pro has now replaced it at the same $230 to $240 price range. What are the differences? The first difference is Creality claims they've increased the stability of the frame. I don't have an Ender 3, so I can't verify that. But that's the first feature listed. The second is the original Ender 3s did not have a removable print bed. This has a removable magnetic print bed. It's the same print bed as on the Ender 5 that I have, and I really like the print bed. Not everyone likes that print bed, but I like it a lot. Now, at times, prints will not stick on their own, but I find just a little bit of magic goo, which is a brand name sort of adhesive, works perfectly with that print bed. And finally, the other primary change is they've put a higher quality power supply. Why does that matter? The more stable your power going into your printer, the less likely you are to have errors in your print. So overall, this is a minor upgrade. Now, it comes, we'll see in a moment, with an assembly guide, but I would recommend you go to the website and you download the assembly guide. Unfortunately, I couldn't find an assembly guide for the Ender 3 Pro, so I downloaded the assembly guide for the Ender 3. Under the Ender 3 Pro, you will find a Pro Series 3D printer guidebook, which is not an assembly guide, it's a guide for how to make your first print. So let's get started. So Zach, I want you to carefully open this printer. You should just barely cut through the tape because we don't know what's underneath. We can take off this big piece of plastic. We'll take that out. Let's show you what we have here. So what we have here is basically the printer primarily assembled. We have the removable magnetic print bed that is right here. The print bed is already attached to the chassis. Right over here, we have the actual print head, and it has a nozzle already in it. This is the extruder and one of the axes. So would you take and put that down in a safe spot there? So we're going to move this over a little bit. And now we should be able to take the rest of this out. Okay, so now let's get started. Now, we are going to start with a step that is not in the instruction manual, but has been recommended in a number of videos. And that step is, we're going to verify that the screws on the bottom that hold the Y-axis are tight. And we want to make sure that these wheels are tight enough, but not too tight. So you shouldn't be able to spin them without resistance at all. Now the way these wheels work, you can see here those nuts. When you turn those nuts, it moves the wheels in and out. It's a little tricky to get this in here. There we go. Okay, so Zach, I want you to come over here and take and turn that just a little bit. It might be tight. I'll hold the print bed. Is it too tight? Yeah, there you go. Okay. Now let's see if it's making it looser or tighter. I think let's try it a little more. Okay, good. Now, when looking at the front of the printer, you have to determine the right and the left bar. And the way you determine that is by looking at where there are holes. The left side is the side with 2 holes in it. So this will be the left side. And the right side is the side, with 2 holes in a horizontal line. We have 2 holes in a horizontal line. The left one has the 2 holes on the side, and the orientation is that the hole that's closer to the end goes on the bottom. And we can see that there are holes here and here on this printer. So we're going to turn this up gently. And I will take and hold this in place, and I'll let you put the screws in. Okay. So now let's take and that looks pretty darn good. So that looks nice and level in that direction. And it looks like it's moving out in the other direction. So the way we're going to correct that is we're going to loosen the outside bolt a little bit, tighten the center one more, and then tighten the outside bolt. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, we made some adjustments there. Aha, much better. 9 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 and 7/8. Yeah, pretty darn close. Pretty darn close now. Okay, so that's much better. So that's one of the things you have to verify that is not in the manual. That was a tip I learned from a variety of videos online. So step number 2 is we're going to put the front panel on the printer. Let me hold that for you. This is clearly a job that could be done with one person. It does make it easier to have an extra set of hands. The second half of step number 2 is to screw in the power supply, and those use M420 screws, and then we'll line it up. Okay. Good. You might have to use a screwdriver to get it even started. Okay. Excellent. Now we're ready for step number 3. Step number 3 is to put on the Z limit switch. Once again, on a 3D printer, this motion is X, back and forth is Y, and up and down is Z. So you need to be able to tell the Z axis when to stop so it doesn't run into the print surface. So to support that, you have a Z axis limit switch. This is a little switch here. And when you press it, you can hear it click. That switch is the limit switch. So we're going to install that next. And to install that, we need, the screws are already in place on that, but we have to loosen up these screws so they're just barely catching, so that when we put this into the rail, see how it slides down in the rail? It will slide down properly. And we're going to have to adjust this once we get the rest of the printer in place. Step number 4. Okay, so that's the Z-axis motor. And we do need to attach the motor. The Z-axis comes in a black rubber sleeve. It's a little bit hard to see in the box, so you need to make sure you take this out before you throw the box away. And we're going to gently insert that into the fitting here. Now there are 2 screws on this fitting, and the one on the bottom tightens the adjustment to the motor. The one on the top tightens the one to the Z-axis, Z screw. Let's make sure those are tight. Okay, in step number 5, it's not necessarily obvious how this assembles. You'll notice on the extruder mechanism here, there are 2 holes here, and then there are holes on the other side opposite. You'll also notice on the steel rod that you have a steel rod where there are 2 holes and then a big hole and a big hole. This is a little bit difficult, so let me show you the technique that Zach actually figured out for me. I'm going to take the screwdriver, I'm going to put it through the hole here. I'm going to align it with the screw and press the screw just a little bit through. Then I'm going to take the metal extrusion, slide it into place, and screw it in. Okay, we're going to tighten these one and then the other. Okay, so now we have this assembled. So the key is that this metal extrusion screws onto the outside of the extruder that has its stepper motor and the X stepper motor. Okay, so here are a couple important things that we learned. Number 1, put the belt in place before you put the hot end or the Z-axis control wheels in place. Then put your hot end on, it slides over the edge, then put on these control wheels. Okay, let's connect the belt now to the bottom of the extruder. We'll make sure it's going around properly. Okay, step number 8. Now we're going to put the pulley for the belt, the idler for the belt on the opposite end. Good. Now let's see, we should be able to move this, but you should feel a little bit of tension. Okay, so let's go over once again some of the key components of this build that were confusing. The first is that the X-axis extrusion screws into this supporting plate on the front of the extruder mechanism. The second thing is you need to loop the belt through before you do anything else. Just loop the belt through. When you loop the belt through, it needs to go on the inside of the Z-axis stepper motor, on the inside of this motor. Then you can put on the hot end next. Then you put on the Z-axis support wheels. Finally, you put on the idler on the other end. You need to pull that a little bit tight. You should be able to move this, but there should be a little bit of tension. So that feels like it's nicely done now. Okay, Zach, we only redid 2 things, I think. That wasn't too bad. Okay, let's see what's next. Step 9 is to put this in place. One of the advantages of having a competent assistant is that you can stop for a cup of coffee while the assembly is in progress. Okay, I think you're on the wrong way. Righty-tighty, loosey-lefty. You will notice that teenagers don't laugh at their grandfather's jokes. Just goes with the territory. Okay, now we're going to assemble the bracket for the filament. Okay, you got that?
Yep.
Okay, so now we have to connect all the electronics. Okay, that is the end of step number 12. However, I noticed that the Bowden tube is not connected yet. From past experience, I I know where that connects. So we will connect that to the coupler here on the extruder. Let me just go back and see if there was a step for assembling the extruder that we missed.
On the connectors.
Yeah, so it is shown in step 12, but it's very, very hard to see. So let's go ahead and add a coupler. This can be really just slightly over finger tight. And then we're going to insert the Bowden tube by pressing down on the coupler. That releases the tension, and insert it there. Okay, before powering the printer on for the first time, I want to make sure that this Z level switch, you can hear it perhaps click here, is in the proper position. And so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put a post-it note under the printhead. I'm going to manually lower the hot end until I hear the Z limit switch click. Then I'm going to see how tight the paper is. So this is a little bit too tight. So if it's too tight, I'm going to screw the knob to the right to loosen it a little bit until I get just a little bit of resistance. Now that I have it in that position, I'm going to carefully slide the printhead over to the other side, and I'm going to manually adjust this the same way. And you'll find that if the various screws are too uneven, it won't level up. So you have to have them all about the same. Okay, that's about right. Now we're going to, then we screw this over to here. Okay, it's a little too tight there. Okay, so the idea is to adjust these screws until the paper just has a little tension on it. Okay, we're ready to power on our printer, and let's see if it works. Okay, Zach, why don't you power on and let's see what happens. Okay, we have the Ender logo, and it says Ender 3 Pro, X, Y, and Z are 0, Creality. We are ready to get started. Okay, Zach, now that you have the reel on top, would you pull a piece of filament down and cut it on an angle and then bend it so that it's sort of pointing away from you? So cut it on a sharp angle and bend it so it's pointing away from you at the tip there a little bit, right? And you'll find that that makes it easier to slide into the extruder. Pinch the extruder to release the spring, but just pinch it lightly, because if you pinch it too much, it will push it over. And then push it so that you've pushed quite a bit into the Bowden tube. There you go. Okay, now we're going to heat up the hot end, and we're going to take and extrude a little bit of filament. Okay, Zach, if you would take and go to the menu and press down on it once, and then use the wheel to go down to Prepare. Press it once. And now go all the way down till it says Preheat PLA, and press it. Once the extruder gets up to about 200 degrees centigrade, we will take and push the spring and then push a little bit of filament through until we see the filament coming out the nozzle. Then we'll be sure everything's connected properly together. So Zach, if you go around to the extruder, I want you to push in the spring just a little bit and then push some filament through until we see the filament come out the nozzle. You should be able to have a whole long string come out. Okay, excellent, excellent. So you've just loaded your first filament. Now you can take and pull that spring away. Don't touch the brass nozzle because it's 185 degrees centigrade, which is quite hot. Okay, Zach, now that we've loaded the filament, We manually leveled the bed. That's where we were turning the Z-axis screw and using a Post-it note to get it level. We're ready for our first print. So we're going to get the SD card that they shipped with the printer, and we're going to put it into the printer. Okay, take and put the SD card into the front of the printer, and there's a little slot in the front. You'll see there, it goes in, it'll seem like it's going in upside down. You're in the video doing it, yeah, so stand nicely. The flexible print surfaces that are shipped with the Ender 5 and the Ender 3 Pro work better if you clean them first with a bit of alcohol. So would you just take and rub down that print surface a little bit? Want to make sure we get any grease from our hands, from assembling it, anything else off of it. That will help the first print stick. Now, let's go click the button again. Go to Print from SD. Select Test Dog. And push the button. The printer is preparing to print our first print. We've begun our first print. The print is adhering properly to the print bed. Two things made that possible. The first is we cleaned the print bed with alcohol, and the second is we took the time to level the print bed. Now the real question is, could Zach do this on his own? The instructions are terrible, but there are lots of good videos about assembling Ender 3s. The assembly of the Ender 3 and the Ender 3 Pro are almost identical. So the question now is, Zach, do you think you could do this on your own a second time?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, good. So there you have it. A 8th grade graduate is qualified to assemble an Ender 3 Pro. Thanks again. Have a great day.